All right, so it's for the implementation lab for Soul Matters RE, and the theme is Beauty for June of 2019. Welcome to everybody who's here with us, and also welcome to those of you who are listening in the comfort of your jammies or whatever permutation you've decided to listen to this for beauty. Couple of announcements, just like church. We are very excited and thrilled to welcome L.A. McCrae as our new worship packet researcher. L.A. is also going to be writing the Black Church Tradition packet because they're from that tradition. Yeah, L.A. is an ordained Methodist pastor serving as an interim lifespan religious educator in the Washington Ethical Society and thinking about dual ministry, working on a doctorate in ministry and social justice, I think. So we are very excited about that. This will be our last lab until September because we're done with June. And then in July, everyone's on vacation, and August, we're on vacation still a little bit. I don't know. I'm sitting on the fence about starting. Hey, welcome. Starting a hi implementation lab in August. We'll announce it if I decide to do that, but we'll see. All right. So this is the last lab, and what I do is do a packet overview. So those of like some people are like, I haven't even cracked that file yet. And other people are like, yes, I've been implementing for the last 3 months for the flower communion or whatever is going to be going on in June. But I thought I'd give an overview of my lenses so that those of you who are also auditory learners, like sometimes I am better at hearing someone's ideas than sitting there reading yet another file from the computer. So I'm going to jump into that right now, and then afterwards we'll just chat about how we are each implementing, the challenges, the opportunities, maybe some solution finding. So since it was the last packet, I like to do things that keep me from getting in a rut. And so I challenge myself to make it a treasure hunt, knowing how much the children and the families I've served have loved the scavenger hunts and the treasure hunts around the grounds or whatever. So if all of June and the theme of beauty is a treasure hunt, each session, preschool, elementary school children, and the youth too, has something that is a treasure that relates to beauty that they can search for. It might be the 5, 6 senses. It might be a treasure of the beauty in yourself and finding that kind of thing. So there is an overarching lens to June and beauty. And feel free to jump in and ask questions if you want. So the 5 Sundays are Finding Beauty in Flowers. That was our way of doing something that could echo the flower communion, but if you've already done the flower communion for Mother's Day or whenever you have it, maybe bridging RE Sunday, you can still use it as a session on beauty. I'll mention that we have created a huge, wonderful Google Doc of files from all of our resources on the flower communion. So that's mentioned in the packet. And if you go to that, you'll see all the stuff I've ever written on the flower communion, the suggested multi-gen service that I've offered in the past. There's some Czech folk songs and things like that. And then as well as every other file that anyone has ever sent us. So it's sort of the ground zero for flower communion, if you ask me. So that's flowers. Then the next session is Finding Beauty in the Creations We Make. That's about art and self-expression. Finding Beauty in Others and Ourselves. That specifically relates to Pride Month and feeling good about yourself and the first principle of worth and dignity of every person. Finding beauty in all of the senses is the fourth one, and that has to do with um, this National Senses Day. And we've sort of taken away the emphasis on sight and done other senses with the lens of ableism, so that we're not saying, well, there's only sight, there's only hearing, there's only touch, whatever. So there's that one. And then the last one, finding beauty in nature. And that's my science one. Sam and I chatted in the brainstorm, and it did come out. It's the Fibonacci the spirals that you find everywhere. Oh, it's such an awesome thing. And I have this little introduction in the welcome about how I was always in low math my whole life. And yet the magic of the Mandelbrot set and the Fibonacci circles and the beauty of that is so inspiring. As a grown-up UU, as a lifelong UU, I'm like, yeah, science and reason. So anyway, that's the nature thing. Then in the Aromac lens, anti-racism, anti-oppression, multicultural lens, I have to admit that in my old 1980s, 90s persona as a DRE first starting, I always would go to Miss Rumphius for beauty. That's a story. Are you familiar with her? She's a lady in Maine, and she grew up and she planted lupins all over. It's lovely. All the children are white. And I was so pleased to find the story of Ashley Bryant, who lives on a remote Maine island called Cranberry Island. Here's this story of this man. And I actually bought 2 of these videos when they showed it here in Longmont, Colorado. This is an award-winning video. If one of you wants to use it, let me know. Buy it from me. I think they were $11, and you can have it for your church. So it's 73 minutes. It's called I Know a Man, Ashley Bryant. But it's also got a 30-minute school version, which would be perfect for Sunday school. Anyway, he does puppetry, which was one of my loves. He does many award-winning children's books based on stories from Africa that he is celebrating from his heritage. So just shoot me a email if you want that, whether you're in the listening audience or looking at me. And then the other person I discovered was Horace Pippin. I've never heard of him. His book is recommended in the packet. He's another artist. So the other old person we always used was Arthur Lismer, the artist story in Tapestry of Faith. No one's ever heard of him, but this is a man who celebrated finding beauty everywhere he goes. But Horace Pippin did the same thing. And he's from the African American culture, grew up through World War I, got injured. His arm, his writing arm and his drawing arm was injured, so he stopped doing art. But soon the impetus drew him back, and he became an artist, and he drew like this. And he has things in the Smithsonian now. So it's overcoming odds. It's African American. It's a wonderful resource, in addition to Miss Rumphius. So I was real excited to find those 2 especially. So let's see. Oh, yeah. So each session now, I find, I developed these over the year. And first it was like, yeah, we need a focus question and the practice. And then we're like, a couple months later, yeah, and we need the focus question, the practice, and the message. And then I was like, yeah, when we need the focus message, the practice, the message, and the goal for all of our people in educational pedagogy, and we need the calendar connection right there. So now, moving forward, as well as this packet, we have right at the top the bullet points that will help you and your teachers know exactly what the whole point of this is. And that's something that I really value, because if our point is spiritual maturation, we're all over the map. It's like, well, what does this have to do with becoming a better UU? Well, it's written out for us right now. So for instance, Let's take the last session. The focus question is, how can we be better at noticing the beauty all around us? And that's right from Thomas Groom's praxis model. It's sort of the pedagogy stuff, but it's how I've written every curriculum in my whole life. You name what we know, you have a focus question. So the focus question the teachers and you can say is, how can we be better at noticing the beauty around us for this session? The spiritual practice then becomes the practice of noticing, which is mindfulness. That's something we want them to develop as a practice in their life of noticing. And then the session goal is to notice beauty by understanding the Fibonacci spiral. That's the pedagogical piece. And then the calendar connection is the summer solstice that's happening right around then. So there you go. Those 4 bullet points are going to be in the beginning of each session. For the little guys, the preschoolers, the elementary school, and the youth. All right. And then the last thing, I won't go real into depth. There's 60 pages of material. Well, I won't go all into every single thing. I was real excited about Reverend J. Lynn's meditations this month, by the way, is finger paint. So as an early childhood education major way back in the 70s that brought me to religious education, I used to grieve that finger paint was only a preschool thing. You know, everybody could use more clay, animals, and finger paint, right? That's one of my little shticks. Sam's heard me say that before. So this is the session I put in finger paint for all ages, maybe not the adults. I didn't do it for the adults, but definitely the high schoolers. I have seen high schoolers finger painting, and it's awesome. We did get a little paint on bodies after a while, so they do like to go overboard, but that's okay. Make it washable. And then the elementary school children, in their little school box, they usually don't get to paint at all anymore with easels and tempera or anything. So I suggested that finger paint be the art medium that we try for that creating things we make session, which would be session 2. I think that's it. The crazy part of me says, hey, what about finger paint as a for all ages? And then my mind goes, no way. No, I'm sorry, we're not going there. However, if you let your mind go there, then maybe you draw it back and you find something interesting as a for all ages to do. I like to throw my mind into those little exercises. It's an exercise as a storyteller. Theater people know how to do this. You go to the extreme. Oh, you know who else knows how to do this? Is stand-up comics. Go to the extreme, and then that becomes like the silly part. But then you're like, oh, finger painting is for all ages. What could I do? You know. Okay, so there's a little technique stuff I do when I'm thinking of for all ages, getting away from stories and books all the time. Okay, I think that's enough of me talking as the overview. I'll check the time. Perfect. And I would love to open it up to hear. This is a time when we can do, I think with just us, we'll talk about anything we feel like. I'm not going to keep it in the challenges, takeaways, solutions boxes. However, let us concentrate on what are our challenges of implementing for June, what are our possible solutions as we hear each other visit about, and what might we take away to put into our programs. So, and if you just want to lurk, don't worry, that's fine too. We don't have to spend the whole hour doing this. It's just a fun time to visit with other religious educators across the country. So I'll call on each of you. Bridget, I'm going to jump on you because you were first in my box here. So join us. Thank you.
Well, I'm probably going to mostly lurk. We currently use Soul Matters in our worship services and in small groups, but we haven't used it in RE. I am new as the RE, as the DLL here. And so I'm thinking next year I'm going to implement the Soul Matters curriculum. So I'm kind of still just learning about how it works and what's there. And so this is the first time I've seen it or been in one of these. So yeah, I'm just here to kind of get a feel for it and learn about what you all do and how you utilize the materials. So
Great. Well, welcome.
thanks.
Welcome. And join us for all of these. And of course, all of the recordings from past ones are up on that YouTube channel too. Cool. Sam.
I can I say I really appreciate that y'all chose beauty for June, because June for everyone, like, you see numbers dwindle because everyone's going on vacation and graduations, and it's, classes kind of, children evaporate. But with beauty, it gives us an opportunity, not that classes aren't fun, but to change it up a little bit, and getting the artsy pieces, and I'm really looking forward to the sensory aspect of it, and so that those who are there, or those who are kind of questioning, do we go in this Sunday? I'm so tired, and to kind of draw them in, like, no, we've got some fun things cooking. And I know for us, we've had, for various reasons, quite a few volunteers trickle off over the past few months with our 2 elementary classes. So those 2 classes have been combined through the end of June. And I'm excited for June, because this past Sunday we did this great group art activity. We read Harold and the Purple Crayon, and everyone had their purple crayons, and mixing it up from the kindergartners up through the 5th graders with our purple crayons, and catching these pathways and talking about, where those images are going and what people are seeing. It was really fun to see all those ages together. So I'm really looking forward to more creative ways to get those groups together and really learn from each other, and learning the beauty in their little intergenerational bubble in that particular room.
Wonderful. I'm so glad to hear you excited about that, because some people are just so full of trepidation about what's shrinking. And doing the One Room Schoolhouse offers us opportunities for faith formation that they don't get anywhere else.
I will say there was hesitation. I mean, you don't know what sort of reaction you're going to get. And the first 2 or 3 weeks, myself and the volunteers who would be in the room would end up cross-eyed at the end of the hour, because everyone's trying to figure out where their energy is going. Mm-hmm. And it's a little noisy, and not just on the sound level. There's just so much chaos in the room, but I think everyone's starting to find the flow. Not just the adults, but the children are finding their flow. So it's getting to be fun. And I love seeing even the 4th and 5th graders finding ways to mentor the younger ones and actually enjoying it, and finding their purpose, and knowing that will carry on as they get older. It's really fun to watch.
Cool. Great. Thank you. All right. Next on my screen.
Hi, I'm Regina. This is my first Zoom meeting. I'll be taking over the role of RE coordinator for my church on the 1st of June. This is a month to shadow the current Coordinator. Um, we're Community Unitarian Universalist Church in Pasco, Washington. We have like 70 pledge units. We are lucky if we get to run more than one class because our middle schoolers and high schoolers are already combined and only show up if there's like a date. So yeah, we have a one-room schoolhouse all the time. Will we separate out the nursery kids because that's just impossible. But I think one of our big challenges this month is that GA is happening just 2.5 hours north of us in Spokane. And I think a lot of our leadership people are interested in attending that, myself included. And so we're kind of stuck with what to do back at the home campus for our worship service. I think we're just going to live stream the thing, but then what to do with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're not even going to have a children's circle that day. And then the other thing is that we our end of the RE celebration typically takes place in the middle of June, right around when school gets out. So that is kind of a day where we don't usually just let them like play games and do a craft without like the story lesson part. Although, it can obviously be a craft with a goal, but they might not know the goal or want the fact that they're learning explicitly stated at them. So it might be a little more subconscious. So those are our challenges right now. Also, yeah, getting volunteers right now is a struggle. I know the person I'm taking over for ended up teaching class almost every week. And if she had a volunteer, that volunteer would be used to separate out and to either give our upper elementary students a chance to do something independently of the large group of lower elementary students that we have, or for if the middle schoolers or high schoolers were maybe going to be in attendance that day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Soul Matters, this is also our first year using that curriculum. We started in January. I think that hopefully will help us get more volunteers, because one of the struggles was people would read through the Tapestry of Faith curriculum and be like, oh, okay, like, pick what they were going to do and try and prepare a lesson, and then have like 2 kids show up, or maybe the next week have 8 kids show up.
Yeah.
And so it was just really uneven and frustrating for the volunteers. But the Soul Matters, I feel like the sessions are a little bit more straightforward in putting together your actual class. So that's hopefully will increase volunteerism.
Boy, yes, and I think you've described exactly what a lot of people in your situation always experience. And I see head noddings. Yep, finding volunteers, the inconsistent attendance, and those volunteers who prepared then saying, yeah, what do you do if there's only 2 kids? Excellent. Now that you've heard each other, and I wanted to just make a few comments. One was when I did Spirit Jam, which is the model of paid lead teachers with a theme. I did that at the church I served in Lafayette, Colorado. Let me just change the view here. I'm feeling like I'm talking to myself. There we go. When we did it, Sam, it started out very familiar to like a sense of controlled chaos. And what we became aware of is that the introverts were very uncomfortable in that situation. And I think in any one-room schoolhouse, the extroverts tend to bring the energy up, and the introverts will just say, oh my gosh, what's going on? And so we had to deliberately find ways that the adults who were aware of the children who were really wanting to pull back, that they would help them feel comfortable too. So I guess all that's a way of saying one-room schoolhouse is very comfortable for extroverts and can be uncomfortable for introverts, unless you have just a few things going on. For instance, puzzles are something that introverts can do, and they can concentrate, but then they can also watch what's going on. So that they're not just left to their own devices and they just want to run back to mom. That's usually what would happen, say, with the first and second grade introverts, especially visitors. They'd be like, no way am I going into this room. But if we had a puzzle in the corner that they could just do, that helped them. Yeah, Sam.
We try to change it up a little each week, so to keep it interesting, keep it moving forward. So we do what I had said with the purple crayons, where it was all of us together and having the older ones mentor the younger ones, almost in a paired situation, which works well. But there are some Sundays, recognizing that some people get very overwhelmed by the larger groups, we do sort of a Montessori-ish setup where we have areas to separate it out, and we sort of pare them down into smaller groups where there may be 3 to 5 people in a group, and it's a little calmer and it's a little more controlled as far as a teacher can sit down with that smaller group and be aware of, this person is kind of pulling out. How do you pull them back in? And if someone's feeling a little boisterous, how do you kind of recenter them? And being able to have some calmer activities, maybe some discussion type groups, especially for the older children that are seeking that out. So there's certainly opportunities to recognize that, and the smaller groups certainly does help with us.
Nice.
Yeah, it's not a perfect plan. No. Tell me a Sunday that's perfect and I'll show you a purple pig. It doesn't always work, but at least for the adults, it makes us aware of who might need a little extra support and who might need a little extra guidance with recentering.
Yeah. Oh boy, great advice. Thank you. And Regina and Bridget, the other real simple skill I learned from a theater person was voice, the importance of the adult voice. And I used to do this with my young adult teachers who would respond to the boisterous classroom by, okay, everybody, okay, and just really, and maybe it was because 2 of them were former Marines. Go figure this. I get the young adults at Naropa University who were formerly in the military, I was like, okay. So they'd be like, okay, everybody line up. And I worked with them and I said, bring your voice down. This is something ministers do a lot. They find their voice of power, and talk quietly, because then you have to listen. And it really helped for me to be a non-anxious presence and to center that space as sacred space, and to know, rather than, those young adults, and they would just be yelling, and I was like, yeah, I love your enthusiasm, but this is how we center a group of children. Classroom management skills, essentially, not Marine management skills. So that, and then the other piece that, besides the introverts and what to do with them, that I wanted to reflect back to you was about the crafts and how much I learned by taking out fine motor crafts from my repertoire for certain things. So we're all primarily gendered female right here in this little Zoom room. And 95% of religious educators are probably identifying as female. And we like fine motor crafts in some ways. You know, it's a natural place for us to go for our temperaments. When I wrote a curriculum called Spirit of Adventure, not for Soul Matters, I challenged myself to do anything but fine motor crafts, mostly because my two sons were saying, we hate Sunday school, Mom. And I was the DRE. It's like, great, this is not going to work, is it? And so I put in, and we are doing sort of, it was in the 90s, so it's more gender binary language. But we did sports. And I said, what can we learn from sports with a group of children? We did medicine, we did engineering, we did architecture, we did exploration, we did science, we did animals. Anybody who's active can enjoy those things. And when you think about offering something besides crafts, and you look at those ways of doing things, again, you open up a door for something a little different. So we do a take-apart party, and the engineering and physicists people in the congregation would come and join in RE just so they could take apart the computers and the adding machines and the stuff I bought at Goodwill and the stuff that had been donated. Cassette tapes and VCR tapes were extremely popular for take-apart day. The kids would be like, I don't see it. Where is it? You know, this is new. This is such old technology for them that it's unusual. So we took apart all the cassette tapes, and the children take this stuff home, and to the delight of their parents. Yeah. The other thing that worked really well was to have an old manual typewriter that was just loaned to us. It wasn't to take apart, but it worked, and the children could see their finger push the P down, and the P would show up on the page, and they could write their Paula name, and it was miraculous, and they loved seeing that. Because think about it, what's the connection between your screen and your word processor, you know? So anyway, there's the again, open a door to something besides crafts sometimes. And it really, for me, it was illuminating in the 90s. And I got different parents interested in coming and joining me too. On that line, then about 3 years ago, I had a little girl in 3rd grade who says, well, Katie, you know, check-in circle, what you been doing? Well, I built my website, but it took me a whole week. So I finally finished it yesterday. I was like, 3rd grade, cool. So anyway, there you go. All right, those were my 2 comments. Now I would love to open it up, listening to each other. What kinds of possible takeaways do you have for what we've been talking about, or something else that occurred to you? And we'll start with Bridget again.
Yeah, I am probably looking at switching to the One Room Schoolhouse for all of it next year as well. So I appreciate the suggestions and learning from you all. And Regina, I'm in Woodinville, Washington, so not far. I'm friends with Crystal, your minister. So anyway,
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm just, it's a little bit intimidating to start mid-year, and like we're also in an interim period, so we don't have a settled minister right now. So everything is kind of just chaotic and stressful, and everyone's very anxious. So like practicing that non-anxious presence, and then at the same time, like, you know, proving that I am competent and qualified, all of those things. So yeah, they have way too many classes for the number of children that they have. So pitching my idea for combining the classes it's faced some resistance, but I think it's the only real practical way. Volunteerism is down as well. I mean, we just don't have the people. So the program used to be a lot bigger, but then it's an interim period, people leave and families go, so it'll build back up again. I have confidence in that, but right now we need to be real about what the situation is. So it's kind of an uphill battle, but I'm so glad that you're making it work, Sam, even if it's just for a month. I'm looking at doing it for the whole year, though. So, and Regina, you too. So, yeah.
Cool. Good. Well, you're taking it smart. That's, I do consulting around the country, and that's probably the first thing I have to tell people is shrink it down. Because the educators say, oh, but fourth grade is so much different than first grade. And you're like, yeah, but be real.
Yeah, well, my idea was to have one class, but then, like you were saying, kind of different activities within that space. Some for the kids that are more active and boisterous, and some for the, and I explained, I was like, I think the fifth graders and the kindergartners that are, the boisterous running around kids have more in common than like the fifth grade introverts and extroverts. I think we'll have a better mix, and I think more kids will have fun and learn. So yeah, we just have to have activities that appeal to different styles of learning. And
yeah, nice, Bridget. Thank you. Sam.
Takeaways. With so many words like chaos being thrown out there in this particular conversation.
Who, me?
You and me and Bridget and Regina and everyone else who's listening that's going, the chaos. I feel like I'm getting many reminders, not just here, but over the past month. Breathe. Just breathe and find those moments. I created a sign for my office door to put up between services on Sunday that very gently says, RE Visioning in progress, your DRE will be available at this time. And just to be able to sit for a few minutes and sip my cold coffee and throw a few grapes in my mouth and pull out my meditation balls and remember why I am in this position, why I love the programming, why I love the congregation, and breathe. It's advice for myself, and I would offer that to anyone new in this position. Remember, sit there and find the ways that you're grateful for where you're at and finding those joys, no matter how small they are, because it's there are some days where it's really, you get bogged down in some of the unpleasantness of this. So find your joy. I'm remembering to find mine, and it makes it so much easier and so much more pleasant.
Lovely advice. Thank you, Sam. Regina?
One thing, well, so first of all, I have a background in working at summer camp. So One Room Schoolhouse, and we chunk by large age group, but still like we would have all of the elementary schoolers for 2 weeks. So for one thing that I found, or I tried last week, and found really worked well, was when I was telling the story, I handed out costume bits and had a no rehearsal participation act out part of it, based on the no rehearsal Christmas pageant, from Erica's book that we had done in Christmas, obviously. So it wasn't something they'd never seen before, but then they're like, oh, we've never done this in this classroom. And they're like, ooh, a prop, ooh, a thing I can say. And then like the one that didn't want to participate, they're like, something more interesting to watch than just my teacher's mouth moving. So that worked pretty well for an all ages classroom. And then, yeah, well, one thing, I'm super impressed that, Sam, you even have your own office, because I don't. A door that you can close. So I will put that sign up somewhere in my heart. And then another thing to share is, if you haven't used the book Last Stop on Market Street in your classes yet this year, you can apply that book to so many things. There's even a line about sometimes when you're surrounded by dirt, it's easier to see the beauty that is there. So I read that for the children. I try not to read a story, like a picture book, during the service part, but I did do that this Sunday, and it was fabulous.
Yeah.
It was great.
Wonderful. That's a lovely little tune there. And I certainly don't mean to not use storybooks, because, you know, when you open up a storybook, here's one I'm working on for Hinduism, by the way. Very lovely storybook. Yeah. Looks like you know it. As soon as you do this, the children know what to do. And that's a really lovely moment of, dare I say, management and togetherness, you know? Everyone knows what to do when you open that book up. So I use them a lot. Oh, and if you're into Hinduism, this is also a new one to me. Hanuman Moves a Mountain. And it starts, the outside of it is the little girl's cleaning up a room, and her aunt says, you need to follow through. There's the little girl. You need to do this. You need to follow it up, says her aunt. Where's her aunt? There it is. So it's modern, but it's also Hindu. And Hanuman Moves a Mountain, Amy Maranville, Maranville. Anyway, a couple of different research projects I'm working on. I was thinking about chaos and what an entrepreneur might call this time for Regina and Bridget. You might sound really professional if you say, we're going to do a soft start. And that means, just like all of us, we're just sort of thrown into it. And then it's like, yes, this is a soft start. And we'll have our grand opening maybe in October, you know, once we get all this going. And suddenly you sound like a pro. I love it that this whole morning was about One Room Schoolhouse and the chaos and what's possible. I think that's great. I'm sure it's going to be helpful for all the people who come and tune in on this channel and say, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? I also wanted to reflect back a piece of my learning after 30 plus years in religious education. And that was that when you ask youth what they remember about their Sunday school years, they usually say, not much. And you put that in perspective, and maybe your energy goes towards helping that youth group stuff happen, which is huge, and the middle school stuff. And the little kids, man, if they come and make friends and have some fun and learn a little content, but it's not so much the content that they're going to remember. They're going to remember the gestalt of being in a community that values them and supports them and their family. So, and before we get all twisted up about what's going to happen to the 3rd, 4th grade class, do what Bridget's done. And it's like, okay, we're just going to mush them all together because there's only 5 coming, you know, or only 8. And this is family style. That's the other pro word. You say, yes, it's family style. And that changes everything from your developmentally, your 5th grader is going to be bored while your 1st grader is going to be puzzled. No, in the family, they're not bored and puzzled. They love each other, sisters and brothers and siblings. Okay, enough of that. Well, I will see if there's anybody who wants to do last comments and reflections or insights. And oh yeah, there, Regina, great.
I don't know if this is what you're looking for, Katie, but just one other thing to throw out there. In my soft start, one thing that I'm going to bring into our program is some bookshelves where the titles of the book face front for our pre-reading children to be able to engage with them more. They're all on, you know, spine out bookshelves, and only the few bookworms ever reach for books in our nursery or in our family style classroom of chaos. And then the other thing that I would like to ask all of you to keep in your hearts, and maybe at our next meeting, Katie, you would have some suggestions, is we have some neurodiversity in our elementary school population, and it was my kid, actually. And so just any support or tips that people might have for trying to meet everybody's needs when you have special ed children in a family style classroom, that would be wonderful. Wow. Obviously not right now, but for next month, if anybody, or I guess we don't meet next month, do we?
Right.
Okay.
But that's a great question.
Sorry to ask a bomb at the end.
Yeah, that's good. It's important. Wonderful. Any other final reflections, insights, comments, questions?
Katie, I would just like to second your commenting on the kids not remembering the lessons and the little details. And I hear it from families who have children that have long since graduated from the RE programs. It's the relationships, it's the friendships. That's what they remember. That's what they hold dear. What we're doing is holding space for them to create those friendships, regardless of what age they are. Whether they start as babies or they start as 10th graders, it's those relationships that really matter. And that's what I hear on a weekly basis.
Yes.
So, yeah, don't get wrapped up in the details, friends.
Yeah.
It's easy to
ask
do.
you if you've gotten pushback on that too.
If I've gotten pushback on the combining?
From parents, no, from content.
From the families pushing back on that. I've had concerns, and actually, Regina, it's been one of the concerns has been from a parent who has a child with a diagnosis. She's had concerns, but it's worked, and she's been wonderful in trusting that we have her children's best interest at heart. And it's worked. And when you create an environment where the parents or guardians are willing to be open to trusting you, it makes it better. And being honest with them that, you know what, this particular Sunday didn't work, but let's work together to troubleshoot. And if you have suggestions, please share it with us, because we're a village. We've chosen this village to raise our children. Let's do it together.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Whew. Yep. And Bridget, any last things? No. Okay. Well, I will close with, in the spirit of beauty and lightheartedness, I hope you find the treasure of beauty in your own lives. And I hope also that beauty finds you in surprising ways this next month. So blessed be, friends. Thanks for spending this time with Soul Matters and myself and each other. Bye-bye.